This episode of the Nerdball Podcast is sponsored by Jake Paluski at Real JP Multimedia. He does the music for this podcast. He has produced this podcast. If you need anything audio-visual done, he is the man to see at realjp.com, REELJP.com. Let's start the show.
My name is Ron Kleinfelter, and this is the Nerdball Podcast.
This is the Nerdball Podcast with Lorenzo Melcher.
All right, Ron. Thanks for coming on the podcast. Uncle Ron, as most of my friends call you.
Yeah.
I think it's
unfortunate.
I was going to ask how you feel about it.
What's that?
I was going to ask how you feel about it.
You know, it's fine. It's funny. Ryan Deering everybody calls me that. Yeah. Zollers calls me that. So it's okay. So
yeah. All right.
I'm only uncle to one of you in true
yes.
blue though. So.
Yes. One that he's on my wall. He's right there. He's along with Adam and the other BGSU seniors and the little thing.
Oh yeah.
Like that.
Yeah.
So one reason I wanted to bring you on, first of all, you're a scorekeeper or major league official scorer, right?
Official scorer in Major League Baseball. Okay. The hat makes you think I'm an umpire, but I sit up in the press box. I'm an official scorer.
Okay, so before we get to that, because that's it's very interesting to me. I do want to ask you, what is something you're really nerding out about? Something you're really into? If it just can't be your job. So something like a movie series or TV or books or a hobby you're doing or woodworking. Do you garden? Any of that stuff? What's something you're like really into?
Something I've been really into. Is like Cobra Kai, the TV show. Yeah. I'm sitting there thinking I can't wait till the next season. It literally takes me anytime those new seasons come out, I sit and watch them. I veg out. And so I read all kinds of stuff about when it's coming. So, but there's a lot of shows like that. I get like that. So
I've never been into that at all whatsoever. I watched Karate Kid. I watched that, but I'm also not someone to like rewatch movies, so maybe that's it too. Like I would imagine you've seen it a lot of times.
Yeah, a couple of shows I watched the series multiple times. Now, Cobra Kai I haven't yet. It's just been because I came to it a little late because it started on YouTube and then moved to Netflix. So I saw season 1 and season 2 when it came to Netflix, and now it's season 3 and season 4 and season 5 is coming. And so you got to remember, I was a teenager when the first Karate Kid came out. You were just, I think, born that year.
Right. Was in the I was born in 85. So
1985 is when Karate Kid came out. Yeah. So, yeah.
So I hear when people talk about Cobra Kai, like it's something that people hate watch. Like they're interested, but it's not very good. Like I would assume you think it's good, otherwise you would.
It is very there. I understand that perspective. It is very, very cliche. Mm-hmm. What draws me in is I grew up in that mid 80s time period. I'm familiar with all the music. I'm familiar with all the cultural references. Okay. Even though it's set in modern times, there's a lot of with Johnny Lawrence. There's a lot of references back to the 80s and the music and that kind of thing. So, it takes me back, right?
I like that kind of stuff too. Just like you said, it takes you back. We recently watched the newest Ghostbusters with Paul Rudd.
Right.
And
I haven't seen that yet.
Oh, it was really good. But it's the same thing, like referring back to the old movies and that kind of stuff. Right. Like, oh yeah. And then I explain to my kids like, oh yeah, this is what they're talking about.
Do you also tell your kids that was before you were born too? 1984.
I do not. They just assume I'm 75 anyway. So
see, all you guys in your mid 30s, you didn't have the culture that we did, so you hijacked ours. Us 50-year-olds, man, you take ours from the 80s. Is what's going on.
Yeah, I don't. Again, I wasn't. I've seen all the Ghostbusters, but it wasn't one of those things like, hey, I gotta I did own I'm sure I owned a pack. What do they call the pack that you wear to catch ghosts? I'm sure I owned one of those as a kid, and
Yeah.
Ecto One. I'm
I,
sure I had that.
yeah. I was 15, 16 when Ghostbusters came on. So those backpack things weren't cool for me to wear
Oh,
at
I'm
that
sure.
age.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
no.
I had the little trap you threw out, and then you stepped on a little pump and it opened. Yeah, I had all that
Yeah.
stuff. I had all that stuff.
That's
But most
probably
of
worth some cash if you still had it.
yeah, oh yeah, definitely. I had but most of that pop culture stuff was probably because my brother was into it. Otherwise, I was strictly sports. Like I really
Sports,
enjoyed
yeah.
sports. I watched bowling. I watched golf. My dad came home when I was like 7, and I have some bowling on. He's like, "What are you watching?" I'm like, "I
Oh,
don't know,
yeah.
but I'm just checking it out." But I love that.
Sunday mornings on ABC, we watched a lot of bowling. Pete Weber and what was his name?
That guy's a trip.
Earl. God, what was his name? I can't remember.
Yeah,
But I remember watching that. So
it was fun. It was but yeah, that was all me, and that's how me and my dad bonded. Actually, my preferred method, because you had to back in the day, it was either radio to listen to Indians at the time game,
right.
or TV5, and they weren't on TV5 very often. And my dad would get a newspaper and get he'd cut the little
Box
schedule
scores.
out. Well, he'd cut the
Oh.
schedule out for the week or whatever, and then we listen to the games. But he'd always bring the newspaper home, because I would look at the box scores and all that stuff. But I remember having to get an extension cord, open our window, plug in a radio so I could listen to the game while I'm playing basketball. But that was my favorite thing to do, is listen to Indians games. Especially now, I love Tom Hamilton.
Yeah. Tom Hamilton's he's an interesting dude. He's very energetic. He's a nice guy. I've talked to him up at the press box in Detroit numerous times. So
nice.
So yeah, he's a good guy. Gets a little bit over the top for my taste sometimes.
Oh, I love every bit of it.
So
every bit of it. Goosebumps. I'll listen to old calls. I'll listen to, even though they lost the World Series, listening to him call that Rajai Davis home run to tie it up.
Oh yeah.
Like I just listened to that last week. Like it's in how and a lot of announcers are really good of letting you hear the moment. Yes, he's over the top, but there was a time in that clip specifically where he didn't say anything for probably 30 seconds and just heard.
Well, and one thing I'll say about Tom Hamilton is, he gets, if there's something exciting going on, even listening to him, it gets your blood pumping, because it's exciting to even listen to it.
Yeah.
So it's always funny when he has his little gas, he gets really excited. There's a drive, and then it's caught on the warning tracks kind of thing. So that happens to him a lot. But Tom and those Indian broadcasters, we have a love-hate relationship as far as official scores in Detroit, because they like to, and I watch a lot of Indians, you probably know. So I watch a lot of the TV. I listen to Tom on the radio. They like to get on scores a lot. They disagree with the scores. So it's always humorous.
So you're an official scorer for Major League Baseball. I'm assuming growing up, that was not something you aspired to, but you liked baseball, right? That was.
Oh yeah. I mean, the one thing I'll say about growing up, I was exposed to baseball, Major League Baseball relatively early. My dad was, he was actually born and raised in southeastern Indiana, in Brookville, Indiana. So essentially, less than an hour away from Cincinnati. So he was a big Reds fan. So when I'm growing up and I'm 5, 6, 7 years old, that was right during the big Red machine, Pete Rose, Johnny Bench, Tony Perez, Joe Morgan, etc. So just followed that relentlessly. My first major league game was August 3rd, 1978, or August 4th, 1978, against the Padres at Riverfront Stadium. So, and then just kept up with it, collected baseball cards, fascinated by the stats on the back. And then it got into, we had cable back in the early 80s, and we had Superstation WTBS at the time. Now it's just TBS, but they showed the Braves. That was the only way, because in the Toledo area, could not pick up the Indians. You got very few Tiger games, but every night on WTBS, you could watch a Braves game. So, I knew the Braves better than any other team, really, because I was able to watch them.
I have a running theory that it's shifting now because you can pretty much watch anything all the time. But when you were younger, and even when I was younger, if the team that you liked in any sport, wasn't good or wasn't available to watch, you probably weren't going to be a fan of that team. Because I mean, I like Texas teams. Lucky for me, the Cowboys were really good and they were on TV all the time. But for some reason, I stuck around for the Spurs, even though I never saw them on TV. I ended up being a fan just because I did. But there's a lot of my friends growing up were the same, always the Yankees or always the Lakers or the Bulls, because they're always seeing them win. That was my theory.
And they're on TV a lot. So
yes.
Now you can watch whatever you want whenever you want. So
yeah, you just gotta pay money.
Back in those days with those teams, I was just talking about this with one of my friends. I used to live and die with my teams. I mean, I still remember those Browns teams of the mid to late 80s with Bernie Kosar and Ernest Biner and Webster Slaughter and Brian Brennan and all of those guys. I mean, if the Browns didn't win on Sunday, it ruined my whole week. And then, I'll tell you, if the Buckeyes lost on Saturday and the Browns lost on Sunday, which didn't happen too often back then because both teams were good, but that was just disastrous for me.
You know who that sounds exactly like?
My nephew.
Oh my gosh. I could care less about Ohio State. Like, I wasn't a big fan. I didn't care if they won or lost. But if I wanted to have a good time, I would hope that they would win, because otherwise Kurt was locking himself in his room and we were going out without him.
Oh yeah, it would be. And see, now as I'm an adult, that it doesn't really affect me. Even I get upset when the Buckeyes lose. I get upset when the Browns lose. And it's funny because like Kurt and Tyler and us will and Brandon will all text during the Browns game, just rip on everything. But when they lose, I'm upset about it, but then I can walk away. There's only really one one team that I follow that when they lose, it like destroys me for a day or two. And I sit there and overanalyze. I watch the game again. I mean, obsessive about it. And that's the Cleveland Cavaliers, the NBA team. Right. So yeah, so I follow them pretty strong. So I'm a happy guy today on your podcast because they won last night, even though Evan Mobley got hurt. So,
what seed are they right now? Because they were flirting with the 4 seed for a while, but now they're close to the play. They're playing games.
They're in the play-in. They're at the 7th seed right now. It's all of it's jumbled. I mean, it's real close between Chicago and Toronto, Cleveland, Brooklyn. I mean, they're all real close. So I mean, anything can happen. Just with the injuries with the Cavs, now we're talking basketball, but with the injuries with the Cavs, I'm just hoping, either they need to get healthy and right the ship, or I kind of just want them at this point, because of all the injuries, just to get into the play-in and then lose, because then they saved their first round draft pick that they traded for Karis LeVert to Indiana. It's because it's lottery protected. So if they don't make it past the play-in, then they'll keep that draft pick, and they could use another.
And a pretty deep draft, from my understanding too.
Yeah, and you never know what's going to happen. I mean, I remember the one time, I think was it Anthony Bennett or was it Andrew Wiggins, where they had like a 0.5% chance of, and they got it. So if they could get one of those top 4 or 5 guys, it can definitely help them. So
going back to being devastated when your teams lose, I used to be that way too. Not like. I mean, it would be a few days and I'm still thinking about it. But what changed for me is having kids and realizing like I have other things I have to do, and I can be upset for a little bit. But hey, at the time, this whatever team lost, I gotta go change this diaper or whatever. Like it
kids,
changes.
Car payments and mortgages will do that to you, Lorenzo.
Yeah,
takes all the fun out of life.
Definitely. But one thing I do love about the sports and the kids is now my son can watch it and be a part of it and cheer with me and be excited. And as much as it hurts to see the Indians lose that World Series in 2016, that will be remembered as the year my son got into baseball, because he started asking questions, and every morning or when I would come home, he asked if they won, and like he was into it, and And then, so I'll be grateful for that run, because that playoff run is what got him into it. Because every night the game was on, me and my wife and him were watching the game until his time for bed, and it was a cool thing. It was a cool thing.
Yep.
So yeah.
Yep. And that, that's what you need. You need the excitement and that kind of thing to get kids interested. I know, that's one of the concerns. Major League Baseball, one of the things they're trying to do is make the game more exciting, get it more interesting for the younger generation, instead of a lot of middle-aged guys like myself watching it all the time. So
but how do you do that? Like, is there, well, I know one thing, and people talk about it all the time. They don't market their stars very well, I feel.
Yeah, that is definitely true. Especially on a national level. They don't, you're not, Mike Trout is not ubiquitous across the TV. Like, think about how many times you see Zion, Mountain Dew, Dorito, all of that kind of stuff. The NBA and NFL, you see Baker Mayfield on the insurance commercials.
And he sucks.
Yes, he does. Don't get me started there, man. Tyler loves Baker Mayfield, though.
No, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Tyler, I feel like Tyler has one of those number 2 jerseys with 15 quarterbacks on the back of it too.
Yeah, he could. Yeah, he could. He was just saying last night, I'm glad I didn't invest in Baker Mayfield's rookie cards. so
yeah, it's like, I really like that my son plays baseball now and is into it, but he doesn't even know people on the Guardians, and we like them, right. There's just it's hard to solve. Plus he's into other things too.
Yeah, it's a good question. I think they're with the new CBA. I think one thing is they're trying to do some rule changes and make some adjustments that, one, speed the game up, and 2, add some excitement to it. Yeah. And like in the National League now, it's universal DH. Yeah. So there's no pitchers hitting in the National League, which will create more offense, because everybody likes a good pit. Well, some people like a good pitcher's duel, but home runs and base hits and people running around the bases is what's more exciting, especially for the younger generation. So, and I think baseball just battles it because they're the only major sport that it doesn't have a clock. So, like when I go to a Cleveland Cavs NBA game, I know I'm in and out of there in 2.5 hours. Baseball could be 4.5. You just never know. So, but they're making some rule changes. I just saw last week that they're pushing through, and the owners are voting on it this week, I think, to go back to where they, in extra innings, they place the runner on second. To try to, so that the games don't go
19 innings,
19, 20 innings, that kind of thing, to get it over with. And it's kind of exciting. I liked it. We did it in the minor leagues in Toledo a couple of years back to start. And I liked it because it just it's exciting from the start. So then I think at one point they're going to increase the size of the bases. So right now the bases are, because they've been testing that in the minor leagues too. And we had that in Toledo last year. And
what is the point of that? I didn't understand the size.
Well, I mean, the thing is, it's like the standard base right now is 15 by 15 inches square, and they're going to go to 18 by 18. So that extra 3 inches, and it'll provide a couple things. One, I think it should be safer because the first baseman is 3 inches farther away from the guy coming across the base or any other base. It should be safer. And then also, if you think about it, the bases from end to end are still 90 feet apart, but with that extra 3 inches, it's 90, 89 and a half, whatever it is, it's 3 inches closer. So you should, get people safe a lot more, keep runners on base. The other thing, I think one of an ancillary thing that'll happen too, because you have a lot of, people stealing second and they overslide and they're out. Well, with 3 extra inches for that player, that runner to grab onto, that should be reduced a little bit. So I think ultimately it should add some excitement. And, they're trying to do other things too. So might get rid of the shift. That could be coming.
Man, I understand what I like the shift. It adds to me, I don't know.
Oh, well, it's strategy.
Yeah.
It is strategy, but it's become so what was the metric I saw? It was like, I mean, over half of the plays there's a shift going on. For, I mean,
Yeah.
more than 50% of the time, there's some kind of defensive shift going on. And
Yeah.
that's all a result. We've seen that come in the last, 6-7 years since the StatCast era started in 2015, because for your listeners that are not familiar with StatCast, is every major league ballpark has cameras all over the place, and they're measuring everything. They're digitally measuring everything. Speed of the ball. I mean, you get all of the exit velocity and the launch angle and
spray charts.
Well, and that's what's happening is there's so much data after 6 or 7 years. And every team now has data analysts that are poring over that and poring over the opponents. And so they know, think of any batter, they know where his propensity to hit the ball is. And so then the shifts happen that way. And the bad thing about the shifts is it cuts down on base hits, right?
Yeah.
So
and that's what they
that's
want.
why MLB is thinking about changing that.
How about
add more offense?
Yeah. How about just lefties need to learn how to spray the ball around a little bit better?
Yeah, you sound a little old school. Well, if he would hit the other way, he wouldn't have a problem.
Or maybe bunt it down third base line every once in a while.
Right.
I mean, that's what they want you to
that's
do.
a lost art. Nobody can bunt in the major leagues anymore. Very few people can lay down a decent bunt consistently. There's no more Brett Butlers in this league. So old Cleveland guy that used to lay him down all the time. So,
did you play baseball in high school?
Yep.
What
college, not like Kurt.
No.
Kurt went on to BGSU, and
we can't all be like Kurt.
Yeah, no. Thank God for that, right? Thank God for that.
Yeah, who has a baby when they're 37? Get out of here.
Well, Kurt does. Hey, he might be going for 10 years. He might have 2 or 3 more. So he's having a boy, but he won't tell me what the name is. He told me it was a boy, but he won't. At first he said it's going to be Kurt Douglas Wells Jr. And then he said he's just kidding. So I don't know. I kept suggesting, how about Beanie? How about, all the people that were Wells for the Ohio State Buckeyes.
Yeah.
But we'll see.
So growing up in baseball and I'm assuming your 15-year-old mind wasn't like, hey, I want to be an official scorer. How did that come about?
It's kind of funny though, because when I was younger, I still think about this, and I tell the story that we used to always go Sundays, family days at Ned Skeldon for the Mudheads.
Okay.
And, my dad would buy me a program, and almost instantaneously, Lorenzo, that middle section right in the middle was the scorecard, the center, and, it had how do you score. And I'm like, so I studied that, and I was always good at math. I just loved the numbers of it. And so, even when I was younger, probably I would say 11, 12 years old is when I first started scoring games. And I was the biggest, it's a good thing we're on the Nerd Ball podcast, because I was the biggest nerd about that. I would watch games, and my dad we'd get those programs, and my dad would take them. I would keep one to where it wasn't filled out, and he'd take it to work and he'd Xerox blank score sheets off for me. And I'd be scoring at home for games, just practicing doing it. So
your little mind was thinking about scoring.
I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy how that happened. And even through my adult life and stuff, before I started in professional baseball, I was scoring almost every game. I'd get a scorecard, and I was scoring almost every game I'd go to.
Wow.
I
did
going
that.
To the 95 World Series and scoring a game, and going to Indians games and scoring those things. I probably have them still somewhere, but yeah.
My mom was our scorekeeper for, I don't know, 6 or 7 years on my baseball team. My dad coached. My mom was a scorekeeper, and my mom was also the bench coach. My dad was like, my dad's like, I just wanted to coach baseball. Your mom handled all the other stuff, made it easy, but she kept score. So we always had books around. I remember one time I was grounded. I don't know, my mid grades or something. And I couldn't go anywhere. So for a whole week, I just had a book. I was watching Indians games and just scoring them as I was watching the game. Yeah, it is a cool thing.
Practice makes perfect.
Yeah,
but you hardly see anybody. You see it, you can pick out a couple in the stands. You can see all that person scoring, but it's not as prevalent as it once was. And most people, well, to be real honest with you, most baseball players, like professional baseball players, they wouldn't know how to score. They don't understand. They don't understand some of the rules. I can tell you some stories on some conversations that I just shake my head at. You've been in the major leagues for how long and you don't know that, kind of thing. So, but it's kind of funny. I think it's a mindset more than anything else. And you got to be attracted to the hieroglyphics of it, writing it in there and the numbers and, that kind of thing. So
I had to do it last year for my son's games a few times. I hadn't done it in a while. So my mom was there and I asked her like, "Hey mom, what's this symbol, or what do you do this, or how do you," and she hadn't done it in years and she remembered it.
Yeah. The thing is, though, it's like everybody has their own system. There's no right or wrong way. I remember watching my dad, that same game, my first game, my dad scored, and he would just write like 1B if somebody got a single, O if they got an out. Now that is just like heresy to me now, because it's like, out, where did that out go?
Yes.
It flew out to 7, you put in a 7 in there, that kind of thing. But yeah, so it was something that has served me well now. So I'm excited to, be into professional baseball. If you can't play, it's just nice to be working for a team or working for, in my case, MLB, and it's pretty cool. So I get to go watch baseball and get paid to do it.
Yeah,
what can be better than that?
That is, so I love podcasting, and I started one at my work. I work for Latino Metro Parks, and I started one there too. And that's the same thing. Like, I'm getting paid. This is what I want to do. Like, I want a podcast and I'm getting paid to do it at work. So that's pretty cool. So you work for Major League Baseball. You score for the same team?
Yeah, primarily.
Okay.
No, I up at Comerica Park with the Tigers. So that's my base. But in years past, I've actually we're probably 10 or so times now, I've gone over to Cleveland, because Cleveland's been, something happens with schedules and they don't have a scorer. So I'm like pretty close. I hop on the turnpike and I've scored games in Cleveland too. Now, the one thing I'll say about, I don't know, it's just my luck driving over there or something, but some of the craziest stuff in games has happened to me when I'm working over in Cleveland.
Like what? Can you?
There was this one play where it was Bogarts, the shortstop for Boston, made the play. He kind of bobbled it, and then he threw it across, and then the first baseman hit him right in the glove and dropped it.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I'm sitting there looking at it. I'm like, is that an error on the shortstop, or is that an error on the first baseman? And it's just like, it was one of those things, because it was a bang play. So I'm like, I'm watching the video over and I'm like stopping it. And I'm like, okay, if he held on to it, is he there at the base, or is it, and I ended up calling it. I remember I called it an E6, and Bogarts, I think his agent or he submitted a review. I can tell you about the review process.
Oh, really?
And he submitted a request because he didn't want an error.
Yeah,
he didn't want an error on him. He was going for a Gold Glove and everything else, so he didn't want the error. And submitted it for a review. And so I get it and I review it. And Laurel at the MLB office has called me and we talked about it. And I'm like, man, that could go either way. I just thought it was too bang at first, and the ultimate error was because he bobbled it. The shortstop bobbled it to begin with. Yeah, the first baseman dropped it, but they thought that even with the bobble, the powers that be at MLB, they thought even with the bobble, the first baseman should have caught it, so they ruled it an E3. So.
That's so when they
don't get me started, but
no. When they review or ask for a review, the scorer who did it is the one who reviews it with somebody else. Yeah.
So what can happen is
because it seems weird to me that the person who made the call also is the one reviewing it.
Nope, that's not how it goes.
Okay.
So they ask for my opinion and I give them my opinion. So how it goes is play happens, scorer makes the call, I make the call one way. Whoever, whether it's a manager, coach, the player himself, It used to be, but I don't think they can. The player's agent even could
Oh,
submit a review.
okay.
And then what happens is it goes in and it goes to a one person in MLB, and they look at it, and because some of the review requests for some of these major league players, I mean, it's just wacky stuff. So it's only the stuff that, and it's immediately declined. The review request is immediately declined in those cases.
Okay.
But
that because in that case it was like a clear error.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah. It's kind of, that's a stupid request kind of viewpoint. But if it goes past the first level, then I get notified that, hey, so and so, I get the actual. It's so funny because I get the actual form, the electronic form that the players or whoever fills out. And then sometimes they're impossible to read, because the grammar is bad, and then it's hilarious too because like I remember Trevor Bauer put on there, and he was like, if you have any, he put on why he thought the play should be reviewed, and he was like, if you have any questions, call me, and he has his cell phone on there. And then you hear all this stuff about his cell phone, his text messages and stuff like that, like a year later. But yeah, that's what happened. So I get the review, and then they ask me what was my opinion, what was my reasoning for why I called it that way. So I'll type out a little thing. I'll add any kind of the advanced metrics that, hey, the exit velocity was X, and this is, that kind of thing, because we have access. But generally it all hinges on ordinary effort with the, whatever position it is. With ordinary effort, should that play have been made?
Yeah.
So I'll give my reply to it, send it back to Tyler Barton at the league office. Then it goes to a review committee, which includes, you mentioned him earlier, Rajay Davis reviews it. Let's see, there's like a committee. I'm going to blank on all of them now.
Sure,
I'm
that's all right.
trying to think. Gregor Blanco is on it. They finally brought a pitcher, and I'm blanking who they were bringing on this year.
Like former players?
There's former players, 4 or 5, and they review it. And there's like 5 votes, and the majority wins essentially on the votes. So now I will say, last year, the team that led, because there's stats on it, the team that led in the least number of reviews.
Yeah.
And we led in the least number of reviews and the least number of overturned calls were the Tigers.
Oh, really?
I had a couple reviews, but they stayed with my original call. I was perfect for the year. So
I was just going to ask you how often that happens, where they take up the review.
I think there was, if I pulled up the PowerPoint, I think there was something like 400 and some reviews last year.
Okay. Is that a lot?
That's a lot. Yeah.
Okay.
And
are those ones that go to the panel, or those reviews?
Yeah, those are the ones that go to the panel.
Oh, wow.
There's probably even more that just got 86 right out of the gate, So
have you ever, besides the review process, have you ever had any confrontations with someone like personally, like to you, as opposed to like, here's this piece of paper?
Yes.
Can you talk about it or not?
Yeah. I mean,
you don't have to name the name if you don't want to.
One person from Perrysburg, Jim Leland.
Okay.
He was very complimentary. The one time Brad Penny he wasn't going to get. He had too many his pitch count was too high. He wasn't going to make it through the no hitter. But in the 7th inning, he hit one down the line, and I ended up calling it a base hit, which it was a base hit. And there's nothing like hearing 43,000 people in Comerica Park boo you, because that's what happened as soon as that hit went up on the board. But it was a base hit, and I appreciated Leland in the post game. He complimented me, and he's like, hey, it was a hit. He didn't wait. He was like, a lot of scorers in this league will wait to see what happens on the next, to play it safe kind of thing. But he put it up because it was a hit. It was always a hit. So a lot of people disagreed with me. That was the one time where somebody tracked me down on my Facebook, and I was told I am a clown and I should be killed, is what somebody told me.
Gosh.
So that was nuts. So but one time Jim Leland called me, and it was an in-betweener. I still remember it was an in-betweener out to the outfield, and I called it an error, and it cost one of his Tiger batters a hit. And I'm talking to him, and I mean, he used the F word in every one of the 8 particles of speech in about 2 minutes with me. You know, it was an effing hit. It's an effing hit tomorrow. It's an effing hit today or tomorrow. It's an effing hit next week. It's just, you know, it was crazy. But I was like, dude, I'm from Perrysburg too. Relax. So, but he was up in the press box last week, so I talked to him a little bit. I never bring that up because I know.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
So, just a bunch of F words again.
It's kind of fun. And then Doug Mentkevich,
okay,
who caught the last out of the 2004 World Series, when the Red Sox finally broke the curse.
Mm-hmm.
He was manager of the Mud Hens a couple years back, and he was screaming at me real bad on the phone, and it came very close to escalating.
Really?
Because he's, you know, I hope, no offense, Doug, but you were just being stupid. But it was a play. There was 2 things that happened in that game. One, you know, his player who was stealing second base, okay, you know, had the base but overslid it and then was tagged out. Well, by rule, even though he had the base, you know, he beat the throw and he had the base, but he overslid. By rule, that's not a stolen base. Mentkevich thought that since he had his hand on the base and he got the base before he was tagged out, he should get a steal.
Yeah.
And that was in one of those cases, like I was saying before. It's just like, you've been in the major leagues for 12 years and you've never known this rule.
Yeah. And in that case, what does that matter? Like,
well, he wanted his runner. His runner was in the running for, like, I think he was getting close to 20 steals. I think he was at 19, and that would have been his 20th steal. So he wanted to get his player his 20 spike. So
okay.
And then the same game, runner on first, and third, nobody out.
Yeah.
Okay. Batter hits a ball to the first baseman. The first baseman, runner takes off from first, runner comes home from third. First baseman steps on first, throws to second, and the runner has to be tagged out. It's called a reverse force double play. So if you make the first out at first, that runner going to second has to be tagged out.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the runner was tagged out. Runner from third came home. Mentkevich was arguing that his batter should get an RBI. Well, you don't get RBIs when you ground into double plays.
Yeah.
But his point was it wasn't a double play because the first out was made at first base. And again, I was like, you know, shaking my head because how do you know, and he was getting so upset and he used a couple F-bombs with me, you know, too. But I just,
I would imagine
kind of crazy.
Yeah, I would imagine the reason that was more escalated because it was 2 calls and not just 1.
Oh yeah, and plus they lost the game and he was pissed.
Oh, so. Yeah. Oh, so how long have you been an official scorer?
Well, I started with the Mud Hens. Everybody always asks me, how'd you get into this? And it's a classic story.
Yeah, did you just like apply?
Yeah, not really, but yeah, it's a classic story of, you know, timing and who you know.
Yeah.
So in 1999, I was friends with the guy. I still am. He's one of my best friends, Guy Lammers. And Guy was an official scorer for the previous 2 years. So since 1997 with the Toledo Mud Hens.
Okay.
And there was actually 2 scorers at the Mud Hens at the time, Guy and John Wagner. John Wagner got a full-time gig with the Toledo Blade, actually being the beat writer for the Mud Hens. So he couldn't do conflict of interest. He couldn't do the Mud Hens anymore. So Guy recommended me. And so I started on opening day in Skeldon at Ned Skeldon against the Charlotte Knights in 1999 in April of 99. And so I was, Guy has an even funnier story about how he became a scorer in 97. He was listening to Jim Weber and the broadcast. And this is how sometimes it works, Lorenzo, in the minor leagues, man. He was listening to the Hens broadcast, and Weber said, "Hey, the Mud Hens are looking for a scorer. Call, 425 hits if you want to try out for a scorer." So Guy called the next day and said, "Hey, I'm interested. I've never done it before, but I'm interested in scoring." He was the official scorer that night by himself at that game. So
by himself.
that's how he's by himself. That's how he started. So then 2 years later, he brought me on. And in 99, my first year at the Hens, one of the PR people for the Hens was a Perrysburg guy, Brian Britton. Britton's Turkey Farm, his uncle. And that kind of stuff, Britton's Turkey Farm. But Brian was PR guy at the Mud Hens. Well, he worked that 1 year, 99 at the Mud Hens, and then he went up to the Tigers and joined the PR staff up at the Tigers. So flash forward 5 years to 2005, and you know how the Hens every year have, well, pre-COVID they did, every year they have, like, they called it the Hens Fest or something, where they have people come into the to the ballpark and bring some people from the Detroit club, some players, and Leland came quite a bit, and they bring the fans in and have a Q&A and some other stuff. And it's kind of crazy to think about it, but that Hens Fest I almost didn't go to, but I did go. And then Brian Britton, my old friend from Toledo from 99, was there, and I'm like, I'm going to go over and talk to him, but I'm like, I don't want to bug him. But I ended up getting a chance to, because he actually came over and talked to me, and just off the cuff, I said, Brian, I've been in AAA for 5 years. I'm ready for my call up to the show. And Brian this is exact words, Ron, you couldn't ask at a better time.
Oh my God.
We have an opening. Do you want it? And I'm like, absolutely. So 2005 is when I started, and I still do the Mud Hens. So I'm going into, I always got to do the math, because because I started in 99, this would be 23 years, but it's only going to be my 23rd season, because we lost a season to COVID a couple years back. So, so 23 years with the Hens, and now 17 with the Tigers, with Major League Baseball. So
now, is this like your job, or is this a side job? Okay, that's what I wasn't sure.
Couldn't make enough money just doing this. So,
okay, I wasn't sure, especially I know, like, I would imagine AAA isn't, but like being part of Major League Baseball, I wasn't sure like how they did with that.
Major League Baseball, they used to give us basically a per game rate, but now they've switched everything to hours, because it's a more fair. It's a fairer thing, because too many times it's like especially for me, I drive that hour up for Detroit, and if it's raining or it gets delayed or it gets postponed, if it was an official game, I got paid zero. It was jack squat. So now getting paid hourly, no matter if the game goes extra innings, if it gets delayed, anything happens, I'm getting paid for all that time I'm there. So
how do you do this and have a regular job?
Well, you just, you save vacation time. There's a team of 3 of us up in Detroit that do the official scoring. Me, myself, Chuck Klonke, and Adam Liberman. We just rotate the games. There's 81 home games scheduled, so that works out to 27. I just did the schedule for this coming year, for the whole year. I think I'm on the clock for 35 scoring games, so I'm doing a little bit more scoring this year than the other 2 guys. But so you just, I'm taking a day off from my real job to work opening day, Friday the 8th of April. And then there's a couple of double headers in there. There's a real wacky double header, because with the lockout and then coming back, they had to redo the schedule. There's a wacky double header in May where Oakland comes into Detroit. The first game, Detroit's the home team. The second game, Oakland's the home team.
Oh, no kidding.
Both played in Detroit. So,
wow.
So there's a couple scheduled double headers, which is really rare in baseball anymore, but I'm doing those. So, and those days where it's like, I've got to, the thing I'm thankful for is my real job. It's not, it's not a punch a clock and you're in, there's some flexibility, and, I use personal time when I need to get to the day games and stuff. But, like Chuck is retired, another scorer, so he does a vast majority of the day games for me. So most of the time on the weekends, Fridays and Saturday nights specifically, if the Tigers are in town, it's me working those games. Those are my 2 pet games. So
nice.
Friday and Saturday nights,
And and you got a couple of our friends too doing stuff at the Mud Hens. I remember talking to Tyler. He was the pitch
Field
Timer.
timing coordinator.
That sounds so official.
Yep, field timing coordinator. That's again, it goes Lorenzo, though, being at the Mud Hens for 23 years, it's cool because it's like, what is it, 7 degrees of Kevin Bacon.
Yeah.
In the Mud Hens, everybody there is attached to me somehow because I brought
wow.
people in. So like my friend Guy Lammers, several years ago, he kind of retired from scoring, didn't want to do it anymore. So it's just, it's a bunch of my friends doing it now. So I brought in Tyler, I brought in Brandon Corwin in there. They're both doing FTC, which field timing coordinator. They have this big clock, and it's coming in the major leagues, folks. It's coming. Doing it. They're not right away.
Sure.
We have field timing coordinators in the major leagues, but the FTCs in the major leagues don't do the pitch clock like they do. Like in the minors, there's a clock on there, and the pitcher has to pitch, or it could be an automatic ball, or the batter has to get in, or it could be an automatic strike. And I think this year it's 18 seconds. So
okay,
but that's going to come. There's no doubt in my mind, because it speeds the game up.
Yeah,
that's going to come to Major League Baseball, and it will, because that pitch clock has been in the minor leagues now for the last several years.
Forever. Yeah,
for the last several years. So you have all of these pitchers and all of these players used to it now. Now when they're getting up to the major leagues, it's what they were brought up on. So it won't be foreign to them so I expect, if not next year, then the following year you'll see a pitch clock in the major leagues too.
Yeah.
So
how does the FTC, what do they have to do exactly? And like, what is Tyler and Brandon doing when they does it seem like it's easy it isn't just to hit a button?
If Tyler was here right now, he'd be saying, I know what he's going to say. Because I always tease those guys that a trained monkey could do that job, because it's literally, you got a button and you're just hitting a button. So you just hit the button as soon as the ball comes in. As soon as the pitcher comes set, you turn off the clock. It's just beep, beep, beep. That's what I hear. They sit right next to me, and I hear it all night. Beep, 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 because they're hitting that button. But I will say, I make fun of them because it's all you're doing is hitting the button. And I always tease Tyler. I'm like, your fingers are so strong, you could push a nail through a board just with, because you've been working that frigging thumb out all your life. But I will say it does take intense concentration on their part, because they've got to watch everything. They've got to watch what the umpire's doing. They've got to watch what that pitcher's doing. Got to watch what the batter's doing. There's between inning clocks, and which we have in the major leagues now too. There's between inning clocks there, but so it's they're getting paid to watch baseball too. But it's all of those positions. It's not like you're sitting there with a cold one and tossing it back and joking with your buddies. You got to watch, and you got to pay careful attention. So takes attention to detail and immense concentration sometimes.
That's what would be terrifying to me. Like, just because I did the scoreboard for a few Perrysburg basketball games, JV, freshmen, boys and girls, and the superintendent was sitting next to me doing a scorebook, and he just leaned over and be like, hey, you missed a point there. I'm like, oh god, sorry. and I didn't even like mess with the fouls or anything. It was strictly the time and the score and the team fouls. He goes, hey, we have 17 fouls. You only have 5. I'm like, oh my god, sorry.
Yeah,
it was terrifying.
Yep, it can be. It can be. Yeah, for sure.
Can anybody buy one of those hats?
No, this was given to me by Major League Baseball a couple of years ago. So they give us some swag here and there. They give us, little notepads and stuff like that. It won't focus, but jackets and shirts. And although the shirts they give me, I hate the shirts they give me, because they say they have the MLB logo and then it says official score underneath there. It's like wearing the scarlet letter walking around the press box, man. I don't want to broadcast that I'm the official scorer, because then people know who to come to complain to. So I very rarely wear those shirts in the press box. So
I would imagine you've been doing it for so long, people know you're there anyway.
Yeah, for the most part. For the most part. I still try to stay pretty anonymous. So but it is cool. I mean, it's the people you see that are broadcasting now, the Hall of Famers, the former major leaguers, coming in and visiting and stuff. I think it's up to, I always joke because people are like, do you get to see this person and that person in the press box? And I always make the joke. I'm like, yeah, in my time in Detroit, I've urinated next to 13 Hall of Famers in the bathroom and stuff. So, it's kind of funny.
I thought to ask you, working for Major League Baseball, are you allowed to hey, can I have your autograph?
No.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah.
Cannot do it. Yeah, it's on you get a credential and it's on the back of every credential. You're just, you're not supposed to do it.
You're so close yet so far away.
Yeah. I've only in my entire time in 17 years up in Detroit, all the people, that I've come across, I've only gotten one autograph that entire time. And I didn't even ask for it.
Yeah.
One of the writers, Jim Hawkins, great guy. He's retired now, living down in Florida, but I was talking to him because I collect sports memorabilia, baseball cards, etc. So I was working on a set of autographed 1984 Tigers. So the World Series team.
Yeah.
The 84 Topps Tigers. And I was literally down to a couple of different cards. One of them was Jack Morris, who now broadcasts for the Tigers. I see him all the time. But at that time, he would broadcast here and there for the Twins. And so Hawk and I were talking about it, and he was like, why don't you bring that card in tomorrow and have Jack sign it? I'm like, I'm not supposed to ask for signatures. He's like, just bring it in tomorrow. So I did bring it in tomorrow, and then Hawk went over and asked for me. So that's the only the only autograph I've ever gotten. And Jack signed it for me. Fine. I mean, I'm sure most everybody's real nice up there, but you just don't want to. I'm sure they'd sign if you ask.
Yeah.
I just don't. I think about it sometimes. I'd love to get that roar of 84, Gibby with his arms up after hitting that home run. And I'd love to get that photo signed by him because I see Gibson all the time, but I just, you're not supposed to ask, and I don't want to get in trouble.
Can I tell you, no matter how old I get, I love trying to get autographs. And I went to the Hall of Fame, football Hall of Fame ceremony, and seeing being arm's length away from all these Hall of Famers as they're walking. I was out before we went into the stadium. I was out, and they were all getting off buses and expensive cars and stuff, and seeing all these people. And it was just, it's like the coolest thing. And my favorite experience about getting autographs is I went to the Indian spring training. This is probably maybe 6 years ago now, maybe even longer. And I took a little tiny, it was a baby Indians jacket. And I had a clipboard, and I took that with me. I was like, well, let's see if I can get a few autographs. I probably got 30 autographs on that thing. Oh my gosh, it was so much fun. And I just a few of the players only signed my jacket when there's a bunch of people, because I'd be like, hey, this is for my little son. Can you sign his jacket? And then they signed my jacket and then took off. It didn't sign anybody else's. So it was. Well,
that's the one thing. Cool. Take advantage of having kids, man. Take those kids with you because they'll sign for the kids.
Yeah.
I still remember in Cal Ripken's retirement year at Jacobs Field, I took my nephew to a game, not Kurt, but my other nephew Andrew, and he was younger. He's younger than Kurt, but I took him, and we were, because Ripken would sign. You could line up and he'd sign, and so we were right there, and he comes out, and literally, two people down from us is where he starts, and Andrew's got his ball out, and so Ripken starts going away from us, and I'm like, maybe he'll come back, Andrew, maybe he'll come back. Well, he did come back, but then he went one or two over from us this way. So there was 3 people in that entire line that didn't get a ball, and we were one of them. Didn't get something signed, and we were one of them. It was kind of crazy.
Man, yeah, it's cool, and it's because I always think if I ever get famous, I would want to sign things for people, take pictures and all that stuff.
Absolutely.
But maybe when that's all people care about, you don't want to do it. I don't know.
When people are bugging you when you're just trying to eat a sandwich and that kind of stuff, it probably does get annoying. But
my dad,
I just wish these current guys would work on their handwriting a little bit better. So it just looks so horrible. You can't even tell what anything is. So
one time coming home from an Indians game, it was just my dad and his friend went, and they had a couple beverages, and they stopped at a gas station on the way home, and Manny Ramirez was there in whatever expensive car he had with some girl. and my dad was talking to him in Spanish. But like I said, my dad had had some drinks, and he got him to sign like a receipt or something, and
Yeah.
and then like he was standing in the car door, like so he couldn't Manny Ramirez couldn't shut the door. And then finally my dad's friend's like, hey, he's trying to leave, man. Let's go. Let's go. I was like, man, I wish I could have been there for that. That would have been awesome.
Yeah, Manny probably had a wad of $10,000 or so in his glove compartment in that car too, because he was famous about that.
Oh, really?
Carrying around what? Well, the one famous thing is he had like a clubhouse attendant. Hey, can you go move or take my car to get a car wash?
Yeah.
So he gave the clubhouse attendant the keys. This is a famous story, and the clubhouse attendant was, how am I supposed to pay for that? He's like, oh, there's some money in the glove compartment.
Yeah.
So the kid takes the car to the car wash to get it washed, opens up the glove compartment. There's like 20 grand in cash in wrapped up, a stack of bills to pay for his car wash, man. So it's crazy.
Well, Ron, I could talk to you all night, and maybe you can come back on again and have some more baseball stories. I love talking about baseball.
Get into the season, man. I wouldn't mind coming back and talking about everything that's going on. And I mean, there's the one thing I'll say, Lorenzo, is baseball has changed so much in the last 10 years. It's still fundamentally the same game, but with all that data and the stats.
Yeah.
And in the next 10 years, I think it's going to change pretty significantly too. So
wow.
I think we're within a couple of years of, we're going to see it in the minor leagues because they're going to test it, but we're going to see what we refer to as robo-ups.
Oh yeah.
Anymore, I fear for my own, what I do is that at some point with all the data and all the cameras and everything else, they're going to be able to basically, with some algorithm, decide whether it's a hit or an error, and then my job's no longer necessary. So
there's too much technology everywhere.
Oh yeah, and it's coming. It's gonna come. So nothing. All
right.
Do.
Well, thanks again. I once the season kicks off and we're into it, I'll definitely get a hold of you. Come back on. We can talk more baseball. But I appreciate you coming on tonight.
Thanks for having me. I enjoyed it. Good conversation.
Thanks everybody for checking out this episode of the Nerdball Podcast. Please rate, review, and subscribe wherever you're hearing this, on any of the podcatchers, on YouTube. Hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode. We're coming at you 2 times a week now, audio and video. Check us out on all the social medias. Just search the Nerdball Podcast on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. We're out there. Gmail is the nerdballpodcast@gmail.com. If you want to shoot us an email, we'll be happy to get back to you. Thanks to Real JP Multimedia, Cuttlefish Graphics, Perrysburg Junior High STEM Lab, and Big Daddy Graphics for helping out the podcast. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.